I was just sitting here thinking about how we are a lot like trees. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about the fact that us humans are a lot like trees? And maybe you didn't think about that, because I had never thought about it until, I don't know, a few months ago. Actually, no, within the last year I thought about it. But really recently, I thought about all the ways that we're like trees. I mean, not all. I'm sure there's some that I didn't think of. But for the sake of this conversation, real quick, I just want to convince you of 3 ways that you are like a tree and what we can learn from a tree. The first thing I think we can learn from a tree is not trying to be anything other than a tree. A tree's not walking around here trying to be a bird. A tree's just trying to be a tree. Just let that sink in. I know sometimes I find myself wishing I was more like this person or more like that person, but not realizing the cool part is that I'm me, the guy who had to beat 1 in 400 trillion odds to be here. So that's one cue we can take from a tree. And if you think about that a little further. It's not trying to be anything but a tree. And regardless of whether it is bearing fruit, it has leaves, or it doesn't, you still have to respect the fact that it's a tree. If you look at this tree that I'm sitting under, there's no leaves, just branches with the little leaves growing in. But if you look behind me, there's a bunch of trees with a bunch of different leaves. But no matter what, you still know it's a tree. And you cannot avoid the tree. And all of that is true just by the tree being the tree. If you try to walk in a straight line, you would run into this tree, so you can't ignore it. If you try to drive your car over this, whatever you want to call this, grassy area, the tree is going to have something to say about it. And all just by maintaining the fact that it's a tree. Yeah, that's crazy when you think about it. Another thing I thought about, what did I write down? Trees don't compare. They just keep growing. That's their only job is to keep growing and growing and growing. It's not to compare itself to the next tree. It's just to grow. And like I said before, I spend so much time comparing myself to other people or comparing myself to people who are further along or judging people and not knowing the full story. The usual stuff we do and don't want to admit. Yeah, I did all that. But trees don't compare. How much better would our lives be if we didn't bother comparing? I don't know. It's just something to think about. Another thing I wrote is if you think about it, and this is something for us men over 40 especially, some of the most majestic trees do not start growing until their midlife. They're not from jump just producing all these beautiful leaves and fruit. They take time to grow. And that time to grow, during that growth season, they're still maturing. They're still getting bigger. Their roots are still being dug deep. They're getting the foundation solidified first. So just because you may not have grown to where you may want to be yet, what if a tree thought like that? What if a tree's like, it hasn't happened for me yet, so I'm just going to give it up? No. It goes through the process until it starts showing the outcome. This tree started off a little tree, and now it's grown big enough that you have to respect the fact that it is a tree and it is here. And another thing, if you think about it, just like trees have roots, we have roots. See, and how well and how much we pay attention to our roots determine if we grow. A tree planted in the wrong soil cannot grow. When we plant ourselves in the wrong soil, we cannot grow. You know what I mean? So to grow to our potential, we need to make sure we're paying attention to our soil. What are we putting in our mind? What kinds of things are we putting, with our eyes, with our ears? What kind of things are we saying with our mouth? Are we constantly saying, I can't? You know, this is just the way I am. I said all those things. But if you're really honest with yourself, they don't help. They don't help at all. And the last thing, trees are consistently growing towards the light. They're not hiding from the light. They're consistently growing towards the light. We have to be the same way. We have to consistently grow towards the light, not away from it, but towards it, because we are amazing. And it doesn't matter what we've been or what we've done up until this point. We are still have value. We still have worth. And we still are required to keep growing. All right? Okay. And with that, we're going to hug this tree and get out of here. If you think about it too, the wind is blowing a little bit, and this tree sways with the wind. It doesn't topple over, it just sways. What do we need to sway in our lives?